Welcome back. Now, as the World Economic Forum places growing emphasis on artificial intelligence, technology and innovation, the focus is shifting from disruption to delivery. For a look into how these tools can drive inclusive growth in emerging economies, Lyndon Subroyen, Global Head of Digital at Investec, joins us now. Lyndon, thanks so much for your time today. Now, AI has clearly moved beyond being just a buzzword and is now really integrated in most of our workflows when, you're at the office, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of conversations are currently taking place in Davos right now at the World Economic Forum when it comes to implementing AI?
Hi, thank you again for having me on. Let me start with that. And look, if I step back, the focus at Davos this year is about, the theme is meant to be a spirit of dialogue. Mm-hmm. And it's crossing a number of different sub-themes inside of it. One of the big talking points, of course, is AI and the impact it's going to have on the world, both positively and negatively. Mm-hmm. Now, the value for us, of course, coming to something like this is to listen and learn to what is happening at the highest level. I think what's the key thing that I'm finding, of course, is that AI isn't a future debate anymore. It's now a platform shift happening in the world. It is something that is seen to be the cornerstone for what will likely be our economic growth over the next half of this decade, maybe the next decade itself. Mm. But there is a balance being drawn here around what are the investments needed to actually diffuse this into society. So you've got the big players who are actually building the AI models, building the really clever AI. We've got the infrastructure players, the big tech companies who are building the infrastructure to run this on. Mm. And that infrastructure, by the way, comprises a number of different things, right? We need the energy, we need the chips and the computing, we need the hyperscale cloud providers, and then the AI models sit on top of that. If it's going to get diffused into society, the next layer is what's really important, is how do we build applications on top of that infrastructure layer? And then secondly, how do we get people to learn how to use this and learn the skills that will make us more adaptable? Because the key thing that is coming up in the conversations here is how do we get people to learn how to learn again?
Yeah. Yeah. And before we get into upskilling, right, there's a real jobs risk here as AI gets entrenched into businesses, particularly traditional entry-level jobs where many young individuals gain corporate experience. For a country like SA, then, Lyndon, with a high unemployment rate, how do we tackle that? How do we make sure those young adults are not left behind?
Yeah, look, depending on who you're listening to at the World Economic Forum, there's going to be a massive job creation boom, or there's going to be job displacement. Now, I think, bizarrely, both of those are going to be true. I think if we go back to my earlier point around the different layers that are needed in order to get AI to scale, if you just think about building out of the energy requirements, the data centers, the computing that's required to build all of this, there's job creation that comes from that. And it's not the job creation that people are thinking about. Even artisan roles are now super important. We were listening to some statistics about the US where you've got skills like plumbers and carpenters who are needed to build the data centers, who are needed to build the infrastructure around the data centers. They're seeing a massive shortage in that skill. Salaries are booming because of that shortage. And so these are artisan skills that people don't normally place as much value in this kind of digital economy. Yeah, but those are some of the most important skills. So you start with that and you go, okay, to build up the infrastructure, there's a big job creation happening. We're in the middle of the largest infrastructure investment happening in the history of the world at the moment. And so that alone should tell you that there should be job creation that comes out of it. Now, the concern that people have got is as these AI models become more sophisticated, as agentic AI starts to step in and can operate on behalf of humans, there's going to be job displacement.
Yes.
In that discussion, I think what we've got to do is make a distinction between what is the job that you've got. So what is the purpose of your job versus what is the task? I mean, if you had a camera over me at the start of every day, you would think that just by observing me, my job is a typist. But my task is to type up something. My job, the purpose of my job is not typing. And so I think what will happen is we'll start to make a distinction between the tasks versus the purpose of the jobs. And people will start to understand how they can outsource certain tasks to AI to free themselves up to fulfill the purpose of their jobs. Now, when you start to think about that being applied at entry levels, that's where the big concern is, right?
Yes.
And it is quite a dilemma because I've been worried about this. How do you become a really good, experienced lawyer if you haven't started off and learned the ropes? So any role that is a apprenticeship type role, so whether you're a software engineer or you're a pilot or you're a lawyer or an investment banker, all of these are apprenticeship type roles where you've got to learn the trade through experience. It takes 10 years to get 10 years of experience. The problem with artificial intelligence and the models that we're using, both in generative and agentic AI, is it creates the illusion of experience. It's like a compression algorithm for experience. Now, that can be seen in a bad way or a good way.
Yeah.
I'm a techno-optimist, if you haven't known that about me
I can see.
So I think what happens is, because you've got this compression algorithm that's taking place, someone very junior can now operate at a more senior level. And so we're worried about job displacement, but actually I think it's going to create different kinds of roles, because now the entry-level roles get some kind of leveling up in what they are able to do.
Yeah.
So and that probably creates more opportunity.
Yeah. There really is two sides of the coin there. And yeah, it really is about, I guess, educating people and letting them know that there is good and there's potentially bad that can come out of the innovation. Lyndon, thank you so much for your time and taking us through all the conversations around AI that are taking place at the World Economic Forum. That was Lyndon Subroyen, Global Head of Digital at Investec.